And good afternoon, producer Susan. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good, Jersey Joe. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. I heard you got your air conditioning installed finally,
I did just in time for summer.
just in time for summer. Well, great. All right, and you're going to get your tax credit from the U.S. government for doing that?
Uh, Hopefully,
All
I guess
right.
I'll have to wait till next spring when I get my tax return.
All right. Well, let me tell you what we're going to try to fit in today. We have so much to talk about. By the way, today is new. We're doing this on the 14th of May. It's the situation with Jersey Joe, news and perspective you won't hear on TV. Our quote of the week is from author Ayn Rand. Do you know who Ayn Rand is?
Yeah, isn't she like dear Abby?
No, no, no. She wrote
Oh,
the Atlas Shrugged. She was back. She
oh,
wrote Atlas Shrugged, and she was very conservative. She was
okay, yeah.
immigrated from Russia. Anyway,
Yeah.
um, and the quote is what she said: the difference between when businesses make mistakes and when government makes mistake.
Hmm.
And the stupidest thing I've heard all the week. This was a late entry. I had a different one, but we're going to tell you about a woman. We have a clip of a woman who's upset that a veterinarian refuses to treat her son who identifies as a cat. And he was sick and wanted to go be treated by the veterinarian. We have a clip of that. My original one was about a U.S. post office van that was stopped for speeding, and we'll tell you where it was stopped and how fast it was going. That was my original stupidest thing I've heard all week. If we have time, we'll tell you what U.S. state leads the nation in per capita beer consumption. I was surprised. I would have thought it would have been a place like Texas or someplace like that, or Mississippi, but no, it's not any one of those. Have you ever watched the Roadrunner cartoon?
Yep. When I was a kid.
Did you know that there were 7 rules that every cartoon had to conform to?
Yep.
All right, well, we'll tell people what those 7 rules were. Um, and by the way, this 39 years ago yesterday, um, there was a U.S. city in which the police bombed a building. Were you aware of that?
No.
Yes. 39 years ago yesterday, police in one U.S. city literally dropped a bomb on a building um, during a standoff.
Well,
Once
I would
again,
have been in elementary school, so maybe I don't remember.
okay. We will revisit, we've talked about fentanyl and how
Mhm.
how many people one sugar packet could kill. Well, we're going to tell you what's been happening to the number of fentanyl seizures, and it's astounding. We're going to take a look back at how the Disney company was founded, and the risks that Walt Disney took to create that company. We'll tell you how much money is being spent to come up with a vaccine to reduce, ready for this, cow farts. Millions of dollars being spent to come up with a vaccine to make cows fart less. So you got Ozempic for people can lose weight. Well, they're trying to come up with a vaccine that'll make cows fart less.
Oh my gosh.
And we're going to have, so you think you're having a bad day segment. We tell you about a guy whose day started with a car crash and got worse from there. And our taxpayer relief shot comes to us from Cleveland, where a thug tries to carjack an Amazon delivery driver and winds up dead right there. So anyway, our quote of the week is from author Ayn Rand, and she's the author of several books. One of the most famous being Atlas Shrugged.
Mhm.
And here's her quote about the difference between business and government. She said, "A businessman cannot force you to buy his product. If he makes a mistake, he suffers the consequences. If he fails, he takes the loss. If a bureaucrat makes a mistake, you suffer the consequences. If he fails, he passes the loss on to you." I mean,
Mhm.
that really doesn't that just kind of
Yeah,
really,
absolutely.
okay, there is no, if you're in government, there are no consequences for your failure other than maybe you don't get reelected. But,
Mhm.
you don't suffer. And by the way, you may already know this, but in Congress, Congress passes a lot of law that don't apply to members of Congress. You know that, right?
Yes. Hmm.
Like the healthcare. And so one more time. If a businessman, no, a businessman cannot force you to buy his product. If he makes a mistake, he suffers the consequences. If he fails, he takes the loss.
Hmm.
If a bureaucrat makes a mistake, you suffer the consequences. If he fails, he passes that loss on to you.
Hmm.
So that was that. Anyway, So you ready to hear about a woman who's upset about her
Yeah.
son who identifies a cat? The vet won't see him. So here we go. Let me play this.
Son does identify as a cat, but I cannot take him to a vet because I tried that, and the veterinarian told me that because he has human anatomy, that he does not know how to work on him or diagnose him with anything, and he legally cannot. So, and while I do think that is a form of discrimination, because my son, if he says he's a cat, he is a cat, and he needs to be treated like that, like one, But I'm not going to press charges because I know that he could lose his license if he did work on my son. So I'm not gonna try to sue him or anything. So don't worry. But this is something that I want to raise awareness on because I do think that people that identify as an animal should be able to go to the vet. That's the medical attention that they're wanting. And so I really do appreciate you asking this question. I think it's an important topic that we discuss because if we don't, we're never going to make progress. And these people that identify as cats are going to have to continue going to human doctors.
It's becoming impossible.
So, by the way, so that is another the stupidest thing I've heard all week. Is that even stupider than the woman who makes people poop in her backyard?
Surprisingly, I think the woman in the backyard is crazier.
It's
Believe it
crazy.
or not.
Okay.
Because there are a subset of the population, they refer to themselves as furries.
Yeah, you're
So
right.
I I don't agree with it, but I know that those people are out there.
Well,
But this woman taking her child, I mean, that's a parenting fail.
but yeah, it's a parenting film, but she actually took him to the vet and was upset because that her vet wouldn't treat her son. Now I don't know how old the son is. I assume he's he's like 5 or 6 or something like that, or 8 or 9. But but that is clear because here's what my before I heard that, here's what was going to be the stupidest thing I've heard a week. And this is about, I'm going to play you a clip of a postal worker being stopped by a cop for speeding. And here we go. Okay.
A Fremont postal worker pulled over in a marked van, as we just heard, going more than 100 miles an hour.
It happened on a Sunday afternoon along Route 20 west of Fremont. 13 Action News reporter Tony Gaptes has the body cam footage from Sandusky County in this crime and safety alert. Tony.
Christian, Diane, this video shows the interaction of a deputy with a postal worker after the stop. You can hear him say how shocked he was to see a mail van going over 100 miles an hour. Is there a reason you're going over 100? Newly released video of a traffic stop along Route 20 west of Fremont shows body cam footage from a Sandusky County deputy. He had just pulled over a USPS mail van for speeding, going more than 100 miles per hour in a 60-mile-per-hour zone.
I didn't realize that I was going that fast.
Yeah. I mean, that Mustang took off, he caught my attention, and you flew by him, and I was pacing to like 105. According to the report from Sandusky County, the van had no plates, and the driver appeared to be racing a Mustang. What was the reason? Why'd you take off like that?
I mean, I
Did you know the person in the Mustang?
no.
Okay.
They were driving around ridiculous 590.
I kind of assumed when the way they took off and at the light there, because I was right across from you.
Right.
The postal worker identifies herself as from the Fremont Post Office. This stop happened at about 1:51 in the afternoon on April 21st, which was a Sunday. When I saw him take off, I'm like, you have my attention. And then you went by, I'm like, oh, you got to be kidding me. So he saw me coming up behind him, and he did the right thing and stopped or slowed down, and then you continued.
Right.
So you got your driver's license with you?
Yes, I do.
Court records identify that driver as Drew Brown, who's 28 and from Fremont. She waived the case, which is now closed. Well, obviously the vehicle is not registered to you. Paying a $50 fine for the traffic violation after receiving a verbal warning. All right, Ms. Brown, have you had any citations on the last 12 months or anything? Okay. For racing. All right, just should type it right with you, okay? Late this afternoon, a USPS spokesperson sent 13 Action News this statement: Drew Brown is an employee. It is under investigation. And as a matter of policy, we are unable to comment further on a specific individual personnel matter.
So you're a U.S. postal employee and you're driving 105 miles an hour in a U.S. government vehicle. How?
So my first thought is those mail trucks, I didn't think they could go that fast.
Well, actually, it wasn't one of the square ones. It was actually more like an Econoline van. It was more like an Econoline van. It
Even
wasn't,
I feel like that's kind of pushing the limits of the Econoline man doing 100 miles an hour.
and did you hear say, I didn't realize I was going that
Yeah.
fast? How do you not know you're doing 100 and
I mean, unless you're driving like, a higher end car, I don't know how you would not know it in one of those vehicles.
So that was going to be my stupidest thing I've heard all week until the woman that was upset with the vet not treating her cat. All right. So if you had to guess, and maybe I sent you this, but do you want to guess if you didn't know this, which state would you guess had the highest per capita beer consumption?
I'm gonna say probably desolate, like nothing to do state. Like, well, and I shouldn't say nothing to do, but like Montana or North Dakota, South Dakota.
You know, that's what I thought. It turns out it's New Hampshire, and it's 41.5 gallons per adult, which is almost a gallon per week, which is the equivalent of 442 12-ounce bottles or cans per year. Can you imagine? I mean, can you imagine drinking almost a gallon of beer per week?
Well, Jersey Joe, I'm going to challenge you because here, according to beerinfo.com, I was right. North Dakota, then New Hampshire, then I was actually right again, Montana, and then
Really?
South Dakota.
Then okay, because I got this from this was on one of these sites. So what was the number one state come in?
So in the top 5 states, North Dakota,
At what?
New
How
Hampshire,
much do they drink in North Dakota?
45.8 gallons.
Wow, so they beat New Hampshire.
Yeah, New Hampshire, second place with 43.9 gallons.
Okay.
Montana with 41 gallons. Then South Dakota with 38.9. And then
Okay.
Wisconsin by 36.2.
Those numbers to me are staggering.
Yeah.
Staggering. A gallon of beer a week.
And see, where's New Jersey on the list? Let's see. Wow, let's see, New Jersey. New Jersey's 49th. By the way, they do include Washington, D.C. on here. So there's 51 listed.
Okay.
New Jersey is 49th at 22.4 gallons.
So only a half a gallon a week. Okay. And that's because and by the way, New Hampshire doesn't have any pro. So I understand if you have pro sports team, you're going to football game, you're going to basketball, baseball
Well,
game.
neither does, North Dakota, South Dakota,
Yeah.
Montana.
You're right. It just blows me away that anybody could drink almost a gallon of beer per week every week. It just
No, I do. It's been a while, but I know that there's something. So I can't say that I spent a lot of time in New Hampshire, but I have spent a lot of time in Vermont. And there is something weird with their their alcohol laws in Vermont, that we would go across the border to New Hampshire to buy our alcohol.
Well, in New Hampshire, all the liquor stores are run by the state, by the way.
Yeah, so I'm wondering if that might inflate their consumption, because people are from border states are like Maine and Vermont.
That could be, you have people, because when I used to travel up that way, when I was going through Vermont, I used to detour into New Hampshire to buy alcohol, because it was
We'd always go across the border in New Hampshire to buy our alcohol
because it was always
in
cheaper.
Vermont.
Interesting. All right. You want to move on to the Roadrunner?
Yeah.
All right. So here are the 7 rules, and think about this, and you tell me.
Beep,
Beep, beep. All right. So the Roadrunner cannot harm the coyote. No outside force can harm the coyote. Only his own ineptitude or the failure of Acme products can result in harm to the coyote. Like, the coyote could stop any time if he were not a fanatic. And by the way, here's the definition of a fanatic by George Santayana. A fanatic is one who redoubles his efforts when he has forgotten his aim. So the coyote was a true fanatic. He had to get that. He had to get the Roadrunner. So he could stop if he were not a fanatic. The Roadrunner is never allowed to have any dialogue ever except beep, beep. The Roadrunner must stay on the road. Otherwise, logically, he would not be called a Roadrunner. Here's the next rule. All actions must be confined to the natural environment of the 2 characters, the Southwest American desert. All materials, tools, weapons, or mechanical conveniences must be obtained only from the Acme Corporation. Remember, he'd get all those boxes from the Acme anvil, the Acme hot air balloon, whatever, the Acme chain, whatever. Whenever possible, make gravity the coyote's greatest enemy. And finally, the coyote is always more humiliated than harmed by his failures. So does that pretty much sum up the whole plot of every Roadrunner cartoon you've ever
Yep.
seen? All right. So let's talk about in May 13th, 1985, where the police force in one US city literally dropped bombs on a house. You want to guess what city it was?
No, I don't remember this. I think I was just too young.
Well, I'll give you a hint. It's in Pennsylvania.
Oh,
In Philadelphia. And here's what's happened. There was on Monday, May 13th, 500 police officers, blah, 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 arrived at a building in an attempt to clear the building and execute arrest warrants. It was being occupied by a bunch of militant Black liberation militants, some of which had outstanding arrest warrants. And it was, they called themselves the MOVE, M-O-V-E movement. That the police through the bullhorns gave them 15 minutes to come out. The members did not respond. The police decided to forcibly remove the people. There was an armed standoff. Police threw tear gas. The MOVE members inside the house fired back at them, and then a gunfight with semi-automatic and automatic weapons ensued for an hour and a half. One officer was hit in his flak jacket. Police fired more than, how many rounds of ammunition do you think the police fired during that 90 minutes?
oh, in 90 minutes, man, that could be a lot of ammunition in 90 minutes.
How about 10,000 rounds of
Wow.
ammunition? All right.
Wow.
Anyway, after 90 minutes, from a police helicopter, the police department proceeded to drop two 1.5-pound bombs made of Tovex, which is a dynamite substitute, combined with 2 pounds of FBI-supplied C4 explosive, targeting a fortified bunker-like cubicle on the roof. The bombs exploded 45 seconds after being dropped, inadvertently igniting the fuel of a gasoline-powered generator and setting the house on fire, which was left to burn. The police arrived, and firefighters moved in to control the fire, but there was more gunfire coming from the house, and the firefighters and police were ordered back, and the fire spread to neighboring houses down the street. Only 2 of the MOVE members survived, but 61 homes were destroyed by the fire. So that's the last time there was a bombing in the United States by the police department. Can you imagine 61 homes? By the way, fire killed 11 people in the house, 6 adults and 5 children, which is truly tragic. Remember, was it not Ruby Ridge? What was it down in Texas?
Waco.
Waco, Texas.
I remember that, and I was around the same age, give or take.
Same time, give or take, yes. So
Yeah.
again, another tragedy, 11 people killed, 5 children. But yes, in the United States, we bombed a house. The police department bombed a house. So that's your little, this day, 1985. All right.
I wonder why I remember Waco and I don't remember the Philadelphia thing.
I don't know, but if you want to look up the MOVE bombing Philadelphia, 1985, that's how it's going to be identified. So let's move on to fentanyl. The number of fentanyl seizures by law enforcement has more than quadrupled between 2017, with researchers finding the drug has entrenched itself in the country's illicit drug supply. About 50,000. Now, listen to this contrast. In 2017, which was 7 years ago, authorities seized 50,000 fentanyl pills. You know how many pills they seized last year? 7 years ago, it was 50,000. What do you think they seized last year?
100,000. It's easily doubled.
How about 115 million fentanyl
Wow.
pills? We went from 50,000, which is 1/20th of 1 million, to 115 million pills. And that's just the stuff they seize. That's not the stuff that's being consumed. That's
Yeah.
just what they're catching.
Catching, yeah.
Just incredible that you go from in 7 years. I mean, even if you doubled, you go 50 to 100, 100 to 200,
Yeah.
200 to 400. It's been more than doubling um, every year. So it's just incredible. So again, we've talked about fentanyl, that if you have one sugar packet of fentanyl, the fentanyl in one sugar packet is enough to kill 18 people.
Yeah.
We're losing over 100,000 people a year now to drug overdoses, and the vast majority of those 100,000 are fentanyl because, again, fentanyl is so powerful. A whole pure fentanyl pill could easily kill 20 people. So what they're doing is they're mixing in fentanyl with other fillers. So like if you take a fentanyl pill the size of an aspirin, maybe 1/100th of that fentanyl pill is actually fentanyl. But what's happening when they're doing the mixing, they're not mixing them carefully. So there's no uniformity from one pill to the next. So one aspirin-sized fentanyl pill might have almost nothing in it, and the next one you take might have 6 times the normal amount. That's why people, oh yeah, I've been taking, yeah, I took one yesterday, I took one the day before.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden the one you take today didn't have the right mixture because they're very careless when they mix these things up. And although they all look the same, you got them from the same supplier. Each one is, it's like playing Russian roulette. You never know which one of those fentanyl pills has 6 or 10 or 20 times the lethal amount in them. And that's why people are dying. All right. Have you been watching the History Channel, How Disney Built America?
I did see a show. I think it was the how the brands built
The mega
America.
brands. By the way,
Yeah, mega brands.
by the way, I watched the one on credit cards last night. Do you know what year the first plastic credit card was issued in this country?
The 7th. I recorded it. I didn't watch it yet. But I'm gonna say like 70s.
Nope, 1959. They started
Wow.
off in 1952 as basically a cardboard library card. You would present it to the restaurant. They would take it over the register. They would write it down on a log sheet, and they would hand it your cardboard card. It was like a business card. And then at the end of the week, the restaurant would mail in their invoice to Diners Club. It wasn't until 1959 that the first plastic card was issued to replace the cardboard cards. And here's one more. Do you know when the women were not allowed to have their own credit cards? Do you know in what year the first credit card was issued to a woman?
Okay, I'll go back to the 70s for that answer.
1974, when the Equal Rights Amendment was passed. 1974. But anyway, so there's another series that dovetails. They follow one after the other on the History Channel. It's Disney, How Disney Built America. And it's the history of how Disney got started. Now I want to flash back, and we've talked about this before, about why all the great inventions come out of capitalist countries. And do you remember why virtually every great invention comes out of a capitalist country?
Because there's an incentive to be better.
Right. Again, back when Obama was president, he derisively referred to millionaires and billionaires. He called them life's lottery winners. Well, they only got to be life's lottery winners is because the incentive to take these huge gambles and risks. Now, by the way, for every lottery winner, you have 100 who gambled everything and failed. But if you look at everything from Willis Carrier, who I used to work for Carrier, he gambled mortgaged his house, borrowed from family. He gambled on air conditioning. Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak they worked for a year in Wozniak's garage. They maxed out their credit cards, coming up with the first Apple computer. So these people took insane risks because of the potential to become a lottery winner. Well, here's how the chance to become, to see his vision succeeded. Here's how the risk that Walt Disney took. At the time, 1929, all movies and cartoon shorts were silent. And cartoon shorts at the time were like a 6-minute cartoon with maybe some captioning, but no music, no sound, no sound effects. And that was what they were doing. They were producing 6- and 7-minute silent cartoons for the movie theater between feature films. Walt Disney had the idea to add sound effects like steam whistles, car horns, music, slide whistles, and even like crash sounds to his black and white animated films. But the only way to do it and have it sync perfectly with the action on the screen was to have a live orchestra and sound effects people produce those sounds live while the scenes were being recorded. Now, they were based in LA, and nobody from LA could do that. But there was a studio, a recording studio in New York where they could record film and sound. So he gets on a train from Los Angeles to New York, which is a 3-day train ride, with just enough money for one take, because he had to pay the orchestra and the sound effects people. He only had enough money for one take. Well, the first take was a disaster. So he calls his brother Roy, who was the controller, the treasurer of Disney, and knowing he had no money left in the bank, Roy said, "Walt, we don't have any money for a second take." And Walt Disney told his brother Roy, "Sell my car to pay for the second," and it would be the second and final, because if the second one failed, there was no more money, no more cars to sell. So Walt Disney, down to his last dollar, sold his car to pay for a second take of the orchestra music and sound effects. Had it failed, there would be no Disney today, but it did succeed, and Disney brought to the screen the first animated cartoon with integrated sound effects and music. So there's just another great example of how capitalism drives innovation and risk-taking. Did you know that?
Yeah, yeah. And you look at a lot of the great companies out there, Hewlett Packard, Microsoft, Apple, iPhone, Disney, they all have very similar stories where they risked everything and down to their last dollar before they became a success.
Michael Dell Computers, he started out of his college dorm room, by the way. So anyway, I urge people to watch how Disney built America. Anyway, they've got the mega brands that built America, the foods that built America. Same thing, the Kraft food, how Kraft got its start, the Hershey candy and the Mars candy, how those guys, risked everything, again, down to their last dollar, to bring those products to market. And you see that story over and over and over.
Yep.
All right, you want to talk about cow farts?
Yeah.
All right. Now, you've heard this stuff. Well, cow farts are, they greenhouse gas. Now, I find it hilarious because cow farts, all cows, pigs, collectively 5% are estimated to produce 5% of global greenhouse gas. And here's something they won't tell you: if a cow eats grass, yes, they digest the grass, and the grass comes out. Some of that comes out as methane. But if they don't eat the grass, you know what happens to that grass if they don't eat it?
It decomposes.
And as it decomposes, you know what it gives off?
Methane.
Methane. Have you ever seen the pictures of people cutting holes in the ice and then they light the hole in the ice? Have you ever seen those?
Yeah.
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 Why? Because there's plant matter at the bottom of the lake, and the decomposing plant matter creates methane. That's why when these people drill a hole in the ice and they, put a match to it, you get a flame. So yes, cow farts are 5% methane, but guess what? If the cows weren't eating and farting that, it would still become methane.
It's a natural part of, composting and
Yeah, methane. Yeah. So, but anyway, here you go. Arc Bios, a Boston developer. So this biochemistry lab has raised $26.5 million in venture capital funding, led by an investment firm founded by, drumroll, Bill Gates. $25 million to come up with a vaccine to make cows fart less.
it amazes me that somebody as brilliant, because we were just talking about these brilliant men of America, somebody like Bill Gates, who can be so, I don't even have a word.
Anyway, so that's, maybe that should have been one of the stupidest things I've heard all week. Do you think that would?
Yeah, I think that needs to be one. Yeah, I just don't understand how these brilliant men, somebody like a Bill Gates, would come up with that.
Okay. All right, so let's move on to just when you think your day couldn't get anywhere. So say you're on your way to work, you're in Massachusetts, and your car goes off an embankment. Make sure I have this teed up. Actually, I didn't have this teed up, but I will tee it up. I'm glad I looked ahead. And you're going, and your car runs off the embankment and you're seriously injured, maybe you're unconscious, and you're in your car next to a woods off the side of a highway. And how could things get any worse? Well, let's see. Well, hang on, gotta wait for skip through this ad right here because I didn't have it teed up. Here we go.
We'll begin with breaking news. A man is now dead after state police responded to a car crash on the side of I-91 South in Hatfield yesterday morning. And according to a release, evidence suggests that a bear dragged the driver out of the crashed car. Welcome to Western Mass News at noon. I'm David Horowitz. It is unclear if the crash killed the driver or the bear. The car involved was a 2016 Honda Civic, and the incident is now under investigation. But state police believe the driver lost control of the car, struck the guardrail multiple times, went off the roadway to the right. Then the car traveled down an embankment, entered the wood line, and struck several trees. The victim has been identified as 31-year-old Daniel Ducharme of South Hadley, and we will bring you the very latest throughout the day when new information enters our newsroom.
So can you imagine you go down an embankment, you're seriously injured, maybe you're still alive and you survive the crash, but then a bear comes along and pulls you out of your car?
Yeah.
Is that the definition of a bad day?
Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
Yeah. Yeah.
You'd have to really go far to beat that in terms of a bad day.
Yeah,
much
Jersee
time-
Joe, we're getting low on time. We only have about 7 minutes left if we want to do our taxpayer relief shot of the week.
All right, well, then we're going to do our taxpayer relief shot. This one comes to us from Cleveland. By the way, you've seen these Amazon drivers, not in the big gray pickup, the big gray vans, but individual car drivers, right? Or Amazon.
Yep.
Okay. Well, here's what happens. I won't play the intro and tell you why we call them taxpayer relief shots, but here's what happened when a carjacker in Cleveland tried to carjack an Amazon driver in his car.
Who is the team that tried to carjack an Amazon driver? That decision turned out to be a deadly one.
19 News did some digging into his past. First at 4, Harry Boomer here live with what he uncovered. Harry.
Well, guys, carjackings are often crimes of opportunity. People see a chance to take a vehicle and they go for it. Sadly, that happened here and it ended up being fatal.
Don't try to take stuff, especially around here. You never know who has a gun.
I love that line. Don't try to take stuff, especially around here. You never know who has a gun.
Exactly.
Here we go.
The driver of this Amazon vehicle did, and according to Cleveland police, it appears he used it to protect himself and to stop a potential carjacking. 17-year-old Alquin Wells died from the shots fired by the Amazon driver. CPD also says that during the incident, Wells drove away in the Amazon delivery vehicle and crashed it a short time later. He died on scene. We did some digging, and according to the Cuyahoga County Juvenile Court, Alquin Wells had no delinquencies. He had no traffic violations or unruly conduct. No record at all. The deadly shooting happened around 4 Saturday afternoon at the roundabout at West 48th and Franklin. It's a busy intersection traffic-wise where people ride their bikes and push their babies in strollers and go for walks seemingly without fear.
The driver apparently had a gun. We don't know if it was licensed or not. And that person felt the need to kill someone for carjacking. That's not a capital offense.
It's so random. It's so unlikely in this right here where we are. The deceased person could be somebody that we see walking down the street every day. Who knows? And I guess the Amazon driver did whatever was necessary to protect him or herself, but it's a stunningly sad situation all the way around.
Amazon Flex driver, one who uses their own vehicle to deliver packages, has not been identified. Cleveland police are still investigating. Here in Ohio City at West 48th and Franklin, I'm Harry Boomer, 19 News.
So play stupid games, win stupid prizes, right?
Yep.
17-year-old kid with a gun. Like, gee, I wonder how a 17-year-old kid gets a gun. That's never happened, right?
Yeah.
All right.
Because there's laws out there to prevent that.
Yeah. That's got to be fake news because under our laws, a 17-year-old kid can't have a gun. So that's clearly fake news. They made that story up. All right. Anyway, we're running out of time. Anything you want to add before we wrap up?
Nope.
All right. Well, then I want to thank all of you who listened to this podcast for giving up 30 minutes out of your busy day to listen to me ramble on about things that I find of interest and importance. And I hope you found those topics as interesting and important as I did. And if so, I hope you continue to listen to the podcast in the weeks and months to come. If you want to see some of the materials and story links you heard me talk about today, you can find them on the Jerzee Joe website, spelling Jerzee Joe, Jerzee, JerzeeJoe.com. If you want to send me an email with a comment, question, or suggested show topic, you can do that by sending me an email to simply joe@JerzeeJoe.com. Just remember to spell Jersey with a RZEE. And other than that, Producer Susan, we will sign off and talk to you next week. All right?
All right.
You take care. Bye-bye.
You.